I watched a lot this year, and a lot was pretty good. And the same deal as the other video I did. This is simply new things that I've watched for the first time. That doesn't necessarily mean that it came out this year, just that it was the first time I watched it. So I could talk about something that came out in the 90s, and that would be, what I would say. Um, So, what was the best of the best? So, let's jump right into the first category, the best music. This one's a little bit tough because I have to compare two separate kind of things. One's a rock album called Shadow Academy, self-titled album, and the other was a video game soundtrack called Sea of Stars by Eric Brown. And it's very difficult, but I guess in terms of how much I listen to it, I would have to go with Shadow Academy. But a quick little blurb about the Sea of Stars soundtrack. Eric Brown, or Rainbow Dragon Eyes, is somebody I've been listening to for a long time, ever since he did a chiptune remix of an Alestorm song. And he is an incredible musician. And the soundtrack for Sea of Stars is probably the best part about the game. The game's pretty good overall, although right now with things going on, a certain special cameo was removed from the game, and there's a lot of stuff going on around the stuff, but the game itself is really fun, and the music is probably its best part. Shadow Academy is one of the new albums created by a person named Dan Avidan, who is from Ninja Sex Party, Game Grumps, a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't realize at first, because I listened to a song called White Whale, that it was him. But once I realized it was him, I was shocked because of how good and serious this album is, since most of the stuff he has put out is kind of comical and jokey, but this was an absolutely incredible album. I mean, I think almost every single song was in my top 100 for songs this year on YouTube Music, and that's nuts. Almost the entire album. Next up, the best movie I saw this year. So, this is where it gets a little tricky, because just pointing out one single movie that really, really stood out for the first time that I had ever seen it. I had binged a great deal of James Bond movies, but I have seen most of them in the past, so that cuts them out pretty much completely. But something that I felt, I didn't get to see Godzilla Minus One, otherwise it'd probably be Godzilla Minus One. I'm trying to think about a single movie that really, really left an impression, but I don't really have one. But if I had to sit here and say what was the best movie I watched this year, I'll have to go with, not Riga, Rago. See, this is the problem. I want to say, oh, the best movie I saw. It was the very first one of that series of films. And it was about a giant sea monster and these guys on the boat. And I'm trying to remember if it was Rago. Yeah, it's Rago, not Riga. That first movie by those guys was incredibly good. It was serious. The animation parts that they used, the CG wasn't super great, but it was a really good story. I enjoyed it, and it wasn't goofy. Not like the following up movies, like the movies that came afterwards. That was difficult. So, the best video game I played. Now that one's a little bit tricky, because I've played quite a few games this year, and I guess I would have to say the best brand new game that I've never played I would probably put Sea of Stars in there. And I've already mentioned for a moment about stuff going on around Sea of Stars, but the game itself is turn-based combat, kind of similar to Super Mario RPG, and it also has a very deep story once you get through the first third. The first third is kind of stereotypical, kind of cheesy, but then it gets really good afterwards. And it also gets pretty dark. My one complaint is that without doing all the extra work, the ending of the game is not the best. To get the true ending, you have to basically do every single side quest and deal with an NPC that now has been removed from the game. I don't have any real statements other than it's a really good game. It's not that hard if you know what you're doing. And the music is beyond incredible. So then, let's get to it. The best television show I saw this year. And if you have gone through my list and watched my reviews, you might be able to guess what it was. And even though I enjoyed the One Piece live action a lot, and I was surprised at how well it was, I'm going to have to go with Ultraman Gaia. That show has left a definite impression on me. I think about it quite often, even now, even though I have finished it, I don't know, how many months ago? It was one of the best series I think I've ever seen, period. The storytelling in it, the character development, the fighting, I mean, and then that finale, it's the full package. That was probably, I'm still going to say, it's the best Ultraman series that I have watched. Ah! Go to itch, and I almost dropped my phone. I had, like, my neck itching. Ah! What a way to ruin what I was talking about over here. Alright, so, Ultraman Gaia, which you have Gaia and a ghoul, and the two of them have to deal with some evil force that basically is creating wormholes and bringing monsters, and you have the whole plot building up, and finally when the villain comes through, you're like, oh fuck. And it's just, I told my friends about the show. I got them into watching it. It is absolutely incredible. And I highly suggest everyone. I'm pretty sure it's still on Tubi. Ultraman Gaia, best show I've seen this year.